but it really kind of opened up those divisions in the Republican Party between the kind of traditional fiscal conservatives who are concerned about the fact that all these tax cuts are going to add about $3.3 trillion to US debt, which I think one analysis had as equivalent to $25,000 per household in the US. So there's them on one side, and then there's the kind of Trump loyalists on the other side who say, if the president demands that we do it, then we got to walk through the voting lobbies and do as he says.
We should be celebrating, well, Donald Trump might be, the passing of his big, beautiful bill. Here is Donald Trump actually describing it in his own words.
Everything's going well. Honestly, everything. It's just very complicated because it's very big, a lot of different areas. Look, the Republicans have their heart in it. The Democrats they just want to destroy our country. A Democrat wants to destroy the country. They won't vote on it. They don't vote on anything. This is the biggest tax cut in history. Everything is the biggest in history. It's the best bill we've ever had.
Okay, everything is the biggest in history, set against a backdrop of Air Force One, hence all the noise in the background there. George, we know it's passed through the Senate this afternoon by just one vote. The Vice President JD Vance was called upon to break the deadlock with the casting vote, wasn't he? Just tell us a little about this, because voting had gone on through the night, hadn't it, effectively?
Yeah, there was a lot of manoeuvring, a lot of wrangling in a late night session, and eventually Trump has managed to get it through the Senate, squeaked it through. Bear in mind, it had only got through a vote when it came through the House in May. So now it returns to the House, and he will hope to kind of progress it from there. But it really kind of opened up those divisions in the Republican Party between the kind of traditional fiscal conservatives who are concerned about the fact that all these tax cuts are going to add about $3.3 trillion to US debt, which I think one analysis had as equivalent to $25,000 per household in the US. So there's them on one side, and then there's the kind of Trump loyalists on the other side who say, if the president demands that we do it, then we got to walk through the voting lobbies and do as he says.
Yeah, and that they did. I was just looking up the current debt in the United States. It's significant already, but there's no doubt that an extra £3.3 trillion would increase it sizably, and that's why people are really worried about it. Donald Trump's argument, George, is that by making these huge swathing tax cuts, people will thrive more, they will spend more, the economy will grow more as a result because of the confidence boost. Is it anything like we have here? I mean, things like that, statements like that, workings have to be checked by the Office for Budget Responsibility. Here there are checks, there are costings made. Has anything like that happened in the United States? What can qualify Donald Trump's optimism?
Well, there has been the costing, which is what gave us the 3.3 trillion figure. I think actually the debates are similar in the US and the UK, which is about cutting welfare and how easy it is to do that when you rely on those voters. So bear in mind, Trump's electoral coalition, actually, it cuts through, pretty poor Appalachian communities and parts of the country that rely on Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, all these programs that now he doesn't really want to cut as deeply as some Republicans think he should, basically, in order to get a handle on American debt. So their argument is basically, yeah, sure, do the tax cuts, but you need to slash welfare spending at the same time to pay for that. And he seems reluctant to do that because they are his voters.
I mean, we talk about huge swathing tax cuts. Sort of how much for the average American family, if we were all to put ourselves in the shoes of the average American, has there been a working out, George, about how much each family might be better off?
I have not seen one at the moment. I think there was a figure of about 8% that was being mooted in the long term. But bear in mind, this is an extension basically of the tax cuts that he originally introduced in 2017. So it's basically continuing what he had done from his first administration. But because he wants to kind of perpetuate that, it adds to debt in the future. So it's basically accumulating. It's building up debt in the long term by kind of promising tax cuts now.
With the 1st of July, aren't we? There's a 4th of July deadline over this, isn't there?
Yeah, so he wants it back on his desk by then. So he's now having strong-armed it through the Senate. He now needs to strong-arm it again through the House. But, he may come up against fiscal hawks again. So it was really interesting because, for example, there's a senator in North Carolina called Tom Tillis. He's one of these fiscal traditional conservatives. He came out against the bill. And he almost immediately said, "Well, I can't run for the midterms next year because essentially he's crossed the boss. He's not done as Trump has instructed him to do, and therefore he feels there's no point throwing his hat in the ring because without the kind of MAGA support, he's not going to get anywhere." And now Trump is even speculating that his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, could take that seat in the Senate. So that gives you an illustration of when the Republicans, try and diverge or move back to. We've seen that debate play out in Iran as well, the kind of interventionist versus isolationist wings of the party now on fiscal terms. But as soon as someone tries to kind of revive traditional Republican politics, if it runs counter to what Trump is saying on that day, then you've crossed the president, and there may not be any political way back for you.
The Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, he forced a name change, did he, of the bill? So it can no longer be called the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah, they managed to make it much more boring. I don't have the full name in front of me at the moment, but it's one of these classic pieces of branding that Trump is so good at. And he said immediately, I want to do this rather than separate pieces of legislation as the One Big Beautiful Bill. And now everyone's talking about Alligator Alcatraz, which is where he's been today down in Florida. Again, it's this is a merchandising guy. He's good. He's quite good at branding. These are catchy names. So the Democrats were kind of trying to deprive him of that. I think is a pretty minor victory in the scheme of things.
Yeah. But the idea of this One Big Beautiful Bill written into the statute was something. This has also, of course, reignited the spat with Elon Musk, who is not a fan of this bill. At one stage, there's been a social media spat between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, with at one stage the president threatening to set Doge on Musk or even look to get him deported. Let's have a listen.
I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies.
Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. The Department of Government Efficiencies, of course, doing away with Elon Musk. I mean, is all this in... It certainly sounds as if he's saying it with a bit of a smile on his face. How much aggro is there genuinely between the pair, George, do you think?
Well, Musk has threatened to start up his own political party and, contribute funding to that rather than giving it to the Republicans. And if he started to actually do that at the midterms, I think that would be a bit of a Rubicon crossed. But at the moment, it does seem to be all words. I think, Musk is also concerned about Tesla and its sliding value. So he's basically trying to protect his companies at the same time. Well, that's what Trump is accusing him of, and saying that basically subsidies for electric vehicles that were being slashed in the Big Beautiful Bill, that's the reason that's driving Musk's criticism. But Musk is a pretty powerful foe to have. You've got the richest man in the world versus the most powerful man in the world. And yet it kind of often looks like a kind of row between two kids in the back of the car.
Yeah, look, thank you, George. Just moving on from Musk to Donald Trump's fragrance, just a little note about the Trump cologne for men. It's called Victory 47, in reference to the 47th president, I presume, and costs an eye-watering $249 if you want to smell like Victory 47, folks. I'm sure we'll all be rushing out to buy that one. George Gyrlls, thank you so much for being with us, based out in Washington with The Times. And you can read George's reporting and, of course, all the team over in the States in the paper and online at thetimes.com and on the Times Live app. George, thank you.